Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about Walden Pond, written by Henry David Thoreau. Now, before I go into the summary and analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and comment so that the channel can continue to grow. Now, this work says a lot about human culture, a lot about who we are as humans, and the human condition. I think that what Thoreau says in this work is very important. And before I go into the analysis, I'm just going to give you guys the summary of what basically happened in Walden Pond. What Thoreau tells us is that at a point in his life, he basically left society. He leaves society. He leaves his family and his loved ones behind, and he goes into the woods. Now he's not that far away from the woods. He's actually in walking distance from the woods, and in the work he even tells us that there are certain parts where he goes back home to have lunch or dinner with his loved ones or to just see his loved ones. So in a way, he does leave society, but at the same time, he's in walking distance from society. So in the woods, Thoreau stays there for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. And he builds a cabin, and he also farms. His cabin, he gives us great detail on how he builds it, on what he makes his windows out of. He has one window. So he tells us what he makes his window out of. He tells us how he makes his front door, what he uses for his roof, his walls. He tells us what's in his cabin, how big it is. He even gives us a list on of how much it costs him to make his cabin, which to me, I believe that he was kind of like, um, nudging us a little bit, saying, oh, look at how much it costs me to make my home. How much did it cost you for your home? And I think for me, in the modern day, that does say a lot because on average, people are buying their homes for over $300,000, and he's saying, "Oh, it didn't even cost me $1,000 to make my home. That's how that's how much money it took me to make my cabin, and you probably spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to buy your home." And so he nudges us a little bit on how much we spend for things that we think we need. He also does this when he, you know, starts farming for himself. He goes into great detail on what how he farms, what he farms. He watches his plants or whatever thing he's planting at the current time. Um, he tells us all about it. He goes into detail about nature and how he watches the sun go up and how he watches, the sunset and the sunrise and all of that. So he goes into a lot of detail of how he lives in the woods and what he does in the woods. And then Thoreau also goes into the fact that he really believes that a lot of humans, the problem that we have is that we might not have meaning to our lives and we might need a spark in our lives just because for the most part we have all these things in our lives because they're wants, they're not necessities. Wants and necessities are two very different things. A necessity is something that you definitely need to survive, something that you definitely need to live. A want is something that you want but it's not essential to your life. And even in the modern day, people want to have the fastest car, the brand, the cars that are at the top of the list, the cars with the best names, houses that are the most expensive, the most refined. People want the best. That doesn't really mean you need the best, but people want the best. And for some people, they want, things so much, or they want material things so much that for them it is a necessity. It becomes something. If they don't have it, they're depressed, they're not happy, and they believe that their lives don't have meaning. That's just a take on the modern era. In Thoreau's era, he even says that for some people, their houses own them. They don't own their houses because if you buy a house, you have to work to keep that house. You have to work to maintain the house. You have to work to perhaps pay the house off or to save enough to pay for the house. So, in a way, you're spending the time that you have on earth to buy things, and that thing that you're trying to buy basically owns your life. So, Thoreau does say that there's a lot of times that the things that we want or the things that we seek after, they become the things that own us instead of us owning them. An example of this is if you look at farmers, a farmer can't just leave his farm and just take off. Because to be a farmer or a very um, successful farmer, you have to take out a lot of money, you have to borrow, you have to plant an abundant amount of food. And a lot of farmers sometimes they take on debt so that they can fulfill those demands. And if the farmer just stops, he basically is asking for poverty. He's asking for it to be poor, to not have anything, to lose everything that he owns. And so, in a way, a lot of farmers in the modern era, their farms own them because they can't just leave it and go away. They have to work as hard as they can to pay what they owe and to make what they've spent. So Thoreau is saying we really need to think about our wants. Is our wants basically owning us instead of vice versa? So throughout the work, throughout Walden Pond, we do see many things like this come up of what is a necessity and what is a want. And Thoreau does go through this thoroughly because many people don't understand the difference, right? Another thing that we need to consider when we look at Walden Pond is the isolation that Thoreau puts himself in. One of the biggest topics or one of the biggest ideas that Thoreau brings up in Walden Pond is the ability to hear ourselves think, is the ability to hear yourself and to hear the world around you. Um, Many people they live their lives with never looking up or never trying to experience the world. Thoreau, and many times within Walden Pond, we see him in his cabin listening to the sounds of nature, or in the woods listening to the rhythm of the world, to the birds, to the animals, to the breathing of the forest, to the pond, to everything around him. And he notices the vibrations and the sounds and just how the world has a natural rhythm. And he really understands and really sees this beauty. This is a guy who's watching the sunrise and the sunset, so he really gets to know and gets to see the beauty of the world. For most people, back then and even now, um, our world, we don't really notice our world. And one of the biggest thing to notice is that most people, even when they're like going on vacation, they spend so much time taking pictures of every single thing that they do, they forget to enjoy what they're doing, because you have to document every single thing that you do. You pretty much lose the experience, which is, to me, is quite funny, because you can have a billion pictures on your phone. One day you're going to pass away, and those pictures, they won't make the place of your memories. It's better to make a memory and remember how fun and how enjoyable something is, rather than to just keep on documenting and documenting and documenting. Unless you're going to take several days at some point in your life to watch the document of your entire life, taking pictures of every single thing or videotaping every single thing that you do, it can be quite pointless. And so Thoreau, in one way, and I'm just interpreting this, and from my point of view, I think he's saying that we need to stop chasing after these wants. We need to stop chasing after these distractions and really listen to ourselves and listen to the world around us. When's the last time you actually sat down and think and see what yourself and what your mind and what um, who you are is doing? So that's a central idea and central theme of Walden, is just to take that time to really understand and to really feel for what the world is and what our purpose is. If you spend your entire life chasing, you spend your entire life wanting, your life is going to pass you by without you ever experiencing what life truly is, because we're so stuck chasing after these wants, which life is not about wants. So maybe it's best for us to get the necessities that we need, live with what we need, and enjoy what we have instead of chasing after these things. So, one of the last points I'll make is that think about what you really need and what you don't need. Think about what are necessities in your life and what's not. And I'm going to say this right now: your phone is not a necessity. It seems like it is a necessity. Most people will have a heart attack if they lose their cell phones at the time being. Um, but is it a real necessity to life? I'm pretty sure it's not, because you could probably live without your cell phone. Hopefully. So that's the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for um, watching the whole video. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment. And I'll see you guys in my next video.